I'd like to thank the Directorate of EU Affairs. I would like to thank the leading institutions, stakeholders, EU delegation to Turkey, and every single colleague who have contributed to this process and made this meeting possible. Hope this will be a fruitful panel as well. It has been stated already, we have started this seminar with yesterday's gathering. We have discussed about all the statistics, figures, and our valuable experts from Ministry of Foreign Affairs summarized the general framework, but I would like to briefly inform you about Rome and what have we done so far. Rome is a very common statement as it is IPA. Indeed, it is the acronym for Results-Oriented Monitoring. European Commission's monitoring method. And as you may just understand from the phrase, we are focusing on the results and monitor and evaluate our projects. We conducted the first phase of this project in 2007. And back in that time, it was the component fund, the transition phase, and institutional capacity building was carried out, and we had 300 reports nearly. And in between 2014 and 2016, we have conducted the second phase. Now, under one component, we had prepared 105 monitoring reports. They've contributed to the next stages, surely. And phase 3 project have started nearly 3 years ago. And in that one, a new period monitoring criteria have taken into account to just review the projects within the second phase and in the third phase. In pre-2007 period and in the 2007 period, we had multiple projects, and we had the opportunity to work with you. Indeed, in 2013 period, with a prototype, we had started to adopt a new practice actually for the sectoral structuring, and together with IPA 2 phase, 2014 to 2016, very clearly we have observed a sectoral structuring in our country for those projects, and the systems have been included. Those structures have been included to the system. And today we will be talking about home affairs, fundamental rights, judiciary sectors, and also yesterday's topic, energy, agriculture, and rural development sectors, as well as civil society sector, had multiple projects, and surely all the sectors that we are working together is quite valuable, and there are critical projects for the country, for the projects and for the sectors. We do acquire crucial information from institutions and beneficiaries. For this panel, our topic will be home affairs, fundamental rights, and judiciary sectors, and we will have our speakers from the leading institutions. Without taking much of your time, I would like to leave the floor to Ministry of Justice Deputy Director General of Foreign Relations and European Union, Dr. Ahmet Ulutaj. Before heading to the project, let's just introduce your sector, please. If you do allow me, I will just take my mask off. Thank you. Barbaros Bey for these valuable explanations. Esteemed representatives of Ministry of Foreign Affairs, esteemed acting director of CFCU and his colleagues, esteemed representatives of EU delegation to Turkey, esteemed participants. Before starting my speech, I would like to extend my greetings to all of you. As Barbaros Bey has stated already, I will provide a brief explanation. And by the way, I would like to thank to the organizing committee and to Ministry of Foreign Affairs for providing me this opportunity to talk to you. In this seminar, thanks to this panel, we are together and I am quite glad to be with you. Dear participants, as you do know, sovereignty, thanks to the principles of sovereignty of law and independence of judiciary, Ministry of Justice have been assigned with the duty of conducting, implementing projects in this period. And we are trying to be in coordination with all the institutions involved in the justice, fundamental rights, and judiciary sectors. And we do believe that IPA process is contributing a lot. This ROM Phase 3 project will also contribute to the team spirit as well. As you do know, in 1963, we had Turkey and European Community statement, and in 1999 in Helsinki summit, Turkey have been evaluated with the same criteria of with the member states, and it has been stated once again. So I just summarized you very briefly the process, but as a candidate country, Turkey's scope has been extended within this framework. Our ministry was coordinating projects in pre-IPA period, but for the modernization of judiciary and criminal justice projects were conducted with European Commission as the first project. 29 million euros were used in this period, and all the sectors were included in that one. And in 2007, IPA 1 phase has started, and 104 million euro were allocated to our sector, and we have implemented projects in this regard. In 2014 to 16 period, we had 45 million euro budget for the judicial sector, and in 2014 action plan has stated that there would be 6 projects, and we still have 2 ongoing projects. We have finalized 4 projects. One of them is for the victims' rights project, strengthening the victims' rights project in criminal justice sector, and also improving the quality of auxiliary personnel in justice sector, improving the capacity of enforcement departments. And we also have the technical assistance project for the improving the quality of criminal statistics. We do also have another project for the administrative justice sector to improve the institutional capacity. 4 different project proposals have been accepted, and we had the closing ceremony for 4 projects for the prevention of radicalization, and also for the improving the quality of trainings to the candidate judges and prosecutors have been concluded. We still have ongoing projects for the strengthening of institutional capacity and prevention of any obstacles against the access to fundamental rights. And 7 projects still going on. Personnel training, strengthening the institutional capacity of training centers, criminal expertise training project, alternative resolution projects. And by the way, we have another project that I'm personally involved with. It is for the International Legal Assistance project that we're conducting with the European Commission. Improvement of a model for the children who are staying at pensioners with their mothers is another project. Barbaros Bey, if you do allow me, I will conclude my speech here. And thank you very much for hearing me. My best greetings to you. Thank you. Instead of just referring you questions directly, I would like to just proceed with our second speaker for the Fundamental Rights Project, as it is a very close topic to the judiciary sector, actually. When it comes to fundamental rights, when we hear about that, we do think that it is somehow integrated to the judiciary sector. Though as a CFCU we do conduct projects in a very large scale, but fundamental rights are not that numerous, but we have very crucial, important projects in this sector. And our leading institution has such a future. Generally, other leading institutions have their own departments conducting the implementation of project. However, as far as we do observe, fundamental rights is somehow different because in this sector, generally the final beneficiaries are other public institutions. So you are coordinating and implementing such projects. We would like to hear your comments in this regard. If you can inform us, we will be pleased. Thank you, Çağrı. Hello, once again, we have heard about judicial sector, and actually home affairs, fundamental rights, and judiciary sectors are quite related to one another. So we have observed the impact of those projects on each other's sector, and we are implementing fundamental rights project, and Barbaros is quite right about his observation. We do have certain differences when we compare our way of implementing the projects and other institutions. We do conduct our process of EU negotiations, and there are political criteria. We are focusing on 23rd and 24th chapters, and with many institutions, public institutions, we still continue our coordination activities with them. So we have carried this role to the project world as well. Yes, we have certain advantages, but there are certain challenges that we can state. The number is quite high, but the nature of fundamental rights is above the sector. There are horizontal structures that we need to deal with. We can say that more than 40 public institutions are related to this fundamental rights. And we had the sectoral approach that was introduced in 2014. And we had to have a long roadmap. And we were quite thrilled about this change. And so far, we have worked with many different institutions. And if I just talk about the topics, we had certain projects in regard to the institutionalization of human rights. We had projects in regard to women. We had one project for the equality of women and men, and also for the vulnerable groups. We have another project for Roman people. We have another project, and also for ill treatment. We have another project. So as you may see from the titles of those projects, we are working with Ministry of Interior. We will be starting another implementation with Ministry of Justice. And we have conducted lots of projects with Ministry of Interior, actually, with the different departments, also with the Gendarmerie General Command, with Ministry of Family and Social Policies. In different areas, we have collaborated with all those institutions, and I may say that EU harmonization process is quite important for us. We do check that criteria. We need to evaluate everything within the scope of EU standards. There should be contribution to our country, and we need to have sustainability in regard to the gains of these projects, and it should be complementary to other projects as well. In IPA 3, we are focusing on that maturity of the idea, actually, because if we have that, there will be some other contributions for following projects or to the sectors. I will use the time efficiently and leave the floor back to you. Okay, thank you. I will be turning back to you with some other questions. Thank you, Çağrı Hanım. You have stated certain criteria to be taken into account for the evaluation process, and I will be continuing with Ministry of Interior. We have Özkan Demirel, who is the head of Department for EU and Foreign Relations. For the project portfolio, Ministry of Interior has a huge budget, and they have numerous projects, and some could be quite challenging projects. But I need to confess one thing. In regard to Home Affairs, we are implementing very complex projects for supply and construction. It could be somehow tiring, but we are very happy to be working with you. This is a very valuable sector for all of us. Of course, there are different fields that we are collaborating with, and I believe that Özkan Demirel will be talking about that. Could you please inform us about EU projects, and also can you just state certain information of statistics about the sector? Thank you very much. Before heading to my presentation, I would like to greet you all, our moderator Barbaros Murat-Köse, panelists, and dear participants. And I would like to thank the National IPA Coordinator, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I would like to thank the EU delegation to Turkey for making it possible for us to be here. Surely, Home Affairs is a very crucial sector. It has a complex structure, and there are different types of contracts. Actually, we have TAs, we have twinnings, we have supply contracts, and now we are used to it. In the beginning, it wasn't that easy. Let me confess this as well. I have a couple of colleagues of mine that helped me since the beginning, so I would like to thank them for their contributions. Indeed, IPA conceptualization was quite difficult for me, getting used to the terminology, the jargon. it was quite difficult, but now we do feel that we have a common language to understand each other when we are talking about our projects. And within the scope of the EU-Turkey negotiations, 23rd and 24th chapters in regard to home affairs, fundamental rights, and judiciary sectors, we are also quite related to this chapters. In IPA sector in between 2002 to 2006, in IPA 1 phase 2007 to 2013, 2014 and 2016, and 2017 to 2020, we do have this pre 1, 2, 3 phases. I believe we will be retired from IPA process, but hopefully we will have the full EU membership before our retirement. We hope to see the results of our efforts actually. Together with IPA 2 phase, Çağrı has highlighted quite a good sectorial approach contributed in a very different way, and we had a new perspective. In 2014, we have started this phase, and we had novelties in the area. I mean, maybe in the next questions we will be focusing on the leading institutions' role, but being a leading institution gives you a greater perspective. You have a better command of the project because you start to prepare that project, and that sector coordination meeting is the starting point, and you have the holistic approach. You can prevent any duplications, and you may collaborate with international institutions, etc. So it is quite important function for us, and I would like to thank you especially to the CFCU. We have witnessed the panels yesterday as well, and multi-annual sectors are quite challenging, and we are already involved in the process, but we have benefited from the experience and knowledge of CFCU and your guidance. So thank you very much. We are a structure with the involvement of you. CFCU is in a very critical position for such projects, and I would like to thank to you and to your institution as a whole. And if you do allow me, I would like to state one thing. Since 2002, as Ministry of Interior, we have conducted 103 projects, and the budget, the total budget is nearly 850 million euros in just with the gainment of a leading institution. We had implemented since then 31 projects, and home affairs sector is such a huge sector, and this also is a sign for EU's perspective to home affairs. They are giving importance to this sector, and surely there is also border management and migration management aspects. In irregular migration, our country is a transit country, and in the last period, yes, we are under a certain pressure of migration. We are hosting over 5 million migrants and refugees. Surely we need to strengthen our borders with modern technology, and this is a key issue. Actually, you may see the videos in FAIR, in fair area, and for the migration management, for border management, we had taken certain steps for the modernization of the sector with the contribution of EU. Also, in our sector, we are combating with human trafficking, organized crime, combat against drugs, and trafficking of arms. So we do have various areas to implement our projects. Surely presidency of migration management plays an important role. As you do know, it was a Director General until recently, but now it has gained a new status. So this is an important step also for the migration management. We have benefited a lot from EU funds and EU projects also for the institutionalization of this migration management area. For the customs management, also we had certain projects for the our general commanderies, National Defense, Ministry of National Defense contributed, and they get benefited from the outcomes of our projects as well. Ministry of Foreign Affairs surely conducting all these negotiations with EU accession process, and we were a part of the discussions for the visa discussions, and also for the new generation passports. We have contributed to the process. As you do know now, as Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we are in charge of the passport provision as well. Combat against organized crime, migration management, border management projects were also dealt with the Gendarmerie General Command and also border forces. In regard to migration, we had 30 projects. 380 million euros have been used in this projects. As I've stated, for the presence of migration management, we got lots of benefits. And for the integrated border management, we had 29 projects so far, and nearly 425 million euros were benefited for the capacity building, for the for different purposes in these projects. And some projects are implemented with national sources, domestic sources, but we also have complementary EU projects for these purposes. And in with national sources, we had used the border control in southeastern part of Turkey and eastern part of Turkey with thermal lighting. And with EU projects, we had this technology-supported modern supervision systems have been established, and they complemented one another. And for the organized crime, we had 16 projects, and nearly 70 million euros have been benefited in this field as well. If I do summarize, since 2002, we have implemented many projects, and you may see the huge amount of money that we have used. New projects, one project lead to another, and there were continuation projects also. Those had major budgets, but as I've stated, we have increased the capacity of Presidency of Migration Management, and we created capacity for border management, and with all the components, with the coastal safety guard, with Gendarmerie General Command, with police, we collaborated and lead to novelties in our sector. Very briefly, I would like to add one more thing, if you do allow me. These ROM activities. In regard to that, what are we pleased, especially in Home Affairs, our 29 projects have been monitored, and we got the score of 4.61, and we were in the first place, and we are very happy to have this. We do for the efficiency, effectiveness, for sustainability. We build administrative capacity, and it has been also confirmed by through this monitoring activities. And thank you very much.
Teşekkür ederiz Özkan Bey. Thank you very much. These are really significant explanations, and we witnessed that Rome project was not only successful in your sector, but also successful in the other sectors as well. And I once again want to highlight that your sector is really challenging one, and we are quite happy to work with you and your team. And regarding your wishes for IPA, I believe all our participants will feel the same way. And you also talk about the common interest in home affairs sector, and hopefully all other sectors will be aware of those joint and common interests so that we can speak the same language. With your permission, I would like to give the microphone to the Judiciary Sector representative as well, Dr. Ahmet Ulutaş from Ministry of Justice. Regarding the negotiation topics, we are discussing the judiciary affairs and fundamental rights, but there are some direct impact on the sector as well. Regarding our portfolio, there are some projects for grant and some fundings, and you also work with international organizations. You gave some examples of the project. So the financial assistance allocated to Turkey, do you believe that the amounts are sufficient enough for the Ministry of Justice? Could you please make some elaborations on it? Thank you very much, Barbaros Bey, for your question. As you may know, in IPA 1 period, our ministry was the leading institution, and we conducted 14 projects. In the IPA 2 projects, in the judiciary sector, we had a budget of 14 million euro, and we conducted 17 different projects. And for IPA 3 period, we coordinated all the institutions in judiciary sector, and we sent official letters to them. And in pandemic, we had flexible working hours, and we really work hard in order to have a proper coordination among all relevant institutions and related departments. The TBB and the Bar Association and all other related institutions were invited to join this coordination so that we could raise the awareness among the IPA implementations. And before you, I would like to thank the representatives and the Director Generals of the Foreign Relations and European Union Department in our ministry. And we also work hard, and we delivered many trainings in order to improve the project presentation capacity of our ministry. So before you, I once again wanted to highlight all those efforts, and hopefully these efforts will continue in the near future. As I said before, in IPA 3 period, we had 80,500,000 euro. 80,500,000 euro was the total budget for the first part of IPA 3 period, and we had now 3 projects planned for the IPA 3 period. And you also know that we will have more competitive approach for the new IPA 3 period, and we are going to establish more fundable and doable projects to receive more funds. And we will continue our efforts in order to make sure that all IPA funds are used appropriately. And we also produce progress reports, and in line with the progress reports, we are going to coordinate all the new projects. And in IPA 2 project, after the July the 15th coup attempt, 5 projects were cancelled. But we see that those projects are not just the sources for funding, but we also consider the fact that these projects are playing a key role in order to raise the awareness about Turkey's facts among the other countries, so that the counterparts and the countries may know each other better from a more correct perspective. And in IPA 3 period for judiciary sector, we will take into account the evaluation and assessment of the Chapter 23, and we already have designed our projects in line with the results. And as I mentioned before, EU Commission had some negative attitudes towards the judiciary sector after the coup attempt in 2016. And we hope that this attitude will change in the future. And we firmly believe that once this attitude has changed, our efforts will be more visible. And we would like to strengthen our cooperation with EU with the new projects in the future. And finally, I would like to share another project with you. This project was not funded by EU, but by our own budget. When I was a student, actually, in Istanbul University, I studied EU politics, and I was personally interested in the EU affairs. And I also studied my master's degree in Gazi University, and I also studied the politics and the EU politics and negotiations. And I actually studied and completed my thesis on the EU affairs and EU negotiations between Turkey and EU countries, because I firmly believe that EU will make a huge contribution for Turkey, and there are institutional improvements and the capacity improvements, and we would like to make all our efforts more visible. So I would like to share a book with you. Professor Dr. Ilke Göçmen is the co-author of this book, and the Ilke Göçmen also studied EU law for all his life. This is the EU law for judges and prosecutors, and this book is also available as an e-book. And all the faculty of laws and the courthouses already received this book. And this book was also added in the curriculum as well at the university level. And in addition to that, in the process of EU membership, we have Chapter 23, is important for us, and it is directly with our authority as the Ministry of Justice. And we have another book which was prepared in line with the Chapter 23 studies and works. And you can also find this book on the website of our ministry. And we have another book. This book is the Turkish version of EU acquis related to the fundamental rights in Turkey. And in addition, all those, there are two main pillars, important pillars. The first one is related to the judicial cooperation. The first pillar is related to the judicial assistance, and the second pillar is the EU judiciary. And this third book is related to these two pillars. This is the international judiciary assistance with EU. And this book actually includes the interpretation of the Supreme Court, and we compiled all the cases in this book, and we are quite happy to offer those books to you. And in addition to that, we also have international law journal which have been published in every 4 months. And in this journal, we publish the new articles regarding the EU law and jurisdictions. The EU law includes digital justice and digital cooperation in terms of justice, and those are quite important for us as well. And we are following up all the developments very closely, and we share all the new developments in our journals as well. So I would like to pass the microphone to Barbaros Bey as the moderator, and thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you very much, Ahmet Bey. We would like to thank you very much and all other co-authors of those valuable books for your contribution. And those projects are quite significant, but apart from the budget amount, you also mentioned that the most important point of those projects is to strengthen the cooperation and coordination. You highlighted the importance that the cooperation plays a key role in the successful implementations. So I would like to pass the microphone Çağrı Çakır. You mentioned some projects in the first part of your speech, but how do you evaluate the contribution of those projects in the overall sectors? We have actually some general achievements, which refers to the capacity building of our institutions. But we also conduct citizen-oriented projects, and one of our general achievement is to improve the fundamental rights, and the other achievement is to raise the awareness in terms of fundamental rights so that we can improve the fundamental rights and its implementation in Turkey. Of course, EU has a huge contribution in the development of fundamental rights in Turkey, and Chapter 23 and 24 are playing a crucial role in Turkey, and we pay great attention to those chapters. And sometimes EU officials contributed to the political reform. Sometimes we already had a legislation, but its active and effective implementation was required, and we were supported in this term. And we also have very important achievements. The first part of my speech was a bit more general, but now I would like to go for a more specific details. And I am sure that we have representatives from the relevant institutions who are listening to us. So we started this project with the Turkish Bar Association project. In that project, we focused on the bar associations so that we can strengthen the Human Rights Center, which were affiliated to the bar associations in Turkey. And now they have an institutional organization. And we also reached more than 5,000 lawyers, and we delivered many different trainings. For example, the training on fight against violence against women, and we had some other projects as well, and those projects were funded by EU. But the other important training was related to the acceptability criteria for the applications of the European Court of Human Rights. and we took very important steps to strengthen the implementation. We also had the project on education and training. In 10 different provinces, we outreached more than 100 schools, and there we tried to improve the democracy culture. We had elementary, secondary schools, and the high schools in Turkey. And within that scope, we focus on comprehensive school system. Comprehensive school system not only includes the students and the teachers, but also the environment where the school is located and the peripheries and the culture there as well, so that we can focus on improving the democracy culture in the region. The implementation is still ongoing. We already reached 110 schools in Turkey, but we also make very strong cooperation with Ministry of National Education to increase the number of schools that we reach. And in other projects, we supported the ombudsmanship in Turkey. Of course, the ombudsmanship has their own mandate, and we also, the ombudsman office also focused on young people so that they can raise the awareness among the public. And this project contributed a huge achievement. Once we first started this project, the application the Ombudsman Office received on an annual basis was at around 600. But in the course of that project, the number of applications has skyrocketed actually, just because the people started to know more about the ombudsmanship in Turkey. And also we made some comparative studies regarding the ombudsmanship in Turkey, and I can say that Ombudsman Office in Turkey has a huge achievement as well. And we also had a joint project with the General Command of Gendarmerie in terms of violence against women. We had many trainings, and we also tried to improve the physical infrastructure. We allocated some new tools and facilities for them so that they can have a better implementation. And the civilian surveillance is another important topic that we make cooperation with the Ministry of Interior. And we also established some security councils under the project. And the main objective of those security councils to provide the safety and security all in all in the society. And the citizens also had been engaged in the process. We haven't finalized that civil surveillance project officially yet. All the activities were completed already. And we also trained the stakeholders in the project. And once the project is over, the trainings will still continue. And the right to be convened is also important here in Turkey. And we conducted an important project with cooperation of Ministry of Interior. We prepared many trainings and we delivered trainings. But the most importantly, sustainability is important. And the sustainability concept has already incorporated in the in-house legislation and regulations. And there is a better implementation about how to communicate with the citizens in terms of the full implementation of right to convene. And we also had Law Enforcement Surveillance Commission. This commission was established in 2014. This Law Enforcement Management Commission plays an important role, and if a citizen thinks that his or her or their rights are violated by a law enforcement officer, they can directly apply to that commission for further investigation about the case. And they have a very broadened perspective on such cases, and they have already been trained about how to approach the cases as well. And within that scope, we also trained more than 1,000 administrative authorities as well. And finally, we have a very important project, a gender-sensitive budgeting project for equality between men and women. Even the first year of this project was quite successful, and we have very good achievements so far, because our budget has already been transformed so that we have gender equality-oriented budgeting. And the presidency already established a guideline for budget preparation, and in that guideline they identified the priorities for budget preparation. And for the very first time at the Grand Assembly meetings, we discussed the gender sensitive budgeting items, and public institutions will soon incorporate all those principles in their own budgeting activities. And we already delivered trainings to the representatives of public institutions, and our main objective is to reach more people. We also have a specific project for Roma people, and we have an action plan specifically or targeting the Roma people living in Turkey. And we also conduct many studies to monitor their achievements as well. So I try to give examples from different projects, and I will try to summarize. All those projects actually provided a huge achievement in our main working field, and every project in fundamental right is considered as an investment for a better future. But there is a thing here. Actually, if you complete a project this year, its impact will be visible within 4 or 5 years. You cannot immediately see a concrete improvement right after the project is over. It will take time to have its full reflection in the implementation side. That's why we need to be patient in order to see the impact, positive impact. And Özkan Bey also said that sometimes we focus on too much detail, but the most important part of those projects is that those projects give us the opportunity to make a huge leap towards the future. And we will be benefiting from the results of those projects. And we also would like to thank you very much for implementing ROM projects, because thanks to ROM, we managed to estimate the risks in advance so that we can take the risk mitigating measures immediately. So I would like to thank you very much, because that was a huge support. Now we are going to conclude IPA process, and we will continue our process with the complementary projects. And in this term, we will have a more systematic multi-stakeholder process for the future. And in our new projects, we will manage to do so, hopefully. And this panel gives us the chance that we had a flashback, and we already reviewed our positive achievements, and this is the outcome, and we are all proud of this full picture. And every one of you has a contribution in this picture. And your feedback, your criticism, and the results from the ROM system, we have many chances to improve ourselves, actually. So all those success are ours, and it will help us to take a big step towards the future. So thank you very much for your support. Thank you very much, Çağrı Çakır, for your comment. Sometimes we have limited time, limited budget in projects, and sometimes we have challenges to realize what we desire, what we want to do. But when it comes to the sustainability, if we manage to keep our projects sustainable, it will also contribute to our membership process as well, because as you mentioned, this process has become successful thanks to the contribution of all our stakeholders, and hopefully in the future more projects will be highly sustainable and we will have better achievements. So in order not to exceed our time, I will be a bit quick, and now I want to pass the microphone to Özkan Demirel once again. And you said that in the IPA 2 process, the concept of leading institution has incorporated in our studies, and this concept has become an official part of the process with a communique published by the presidency. And the CFCU is also a part of this common platform as a leading institution. While realizing your works, what type of challenges you have in order to keep those structures more functional in IPA 3 process, what needs to be done? Thank you very much for this question. Actually, being an leading institution or managing IPA is not limited to managing a technical field or managing the IPA itself. For example, Çağrı Çakır mentioned about the project with the General Command of Gendarmerie and the Law Enforcement. These are the units of Ministry of Interior. So in my speech, I referred to our projects that we conducted with the Customs Office or Ministry of National Defense. These are also related to the Ministry of Interior's work field. So the leading institution, for example, we are the Ministry of Interior and we are the leading institution in the Home Affairs sector. However, sometimes the projects do not match the mandate of the ministries directly. Therefore, we have many cross-cutting fields. We have our projects, but we also have projects related to the Ministry of National Education or National Defense. So the public management is completely different. So the managing the IPA is not limited to technical work itself. It is more than a technical work, actually. And Ahmet Bey is among us. He is the head of the Civil Society Director General, and that Director General is also affiliated to the presidency itself. But what I'm trying to say is that we have many cross-cutting issues among all the ministries and the other institutions. We also have the delegation. Alexander Frike is our group leader, and we have many delegation meetings with them. We connect to Brussels and we have joint meetings. So we have our own actors at the ministry. We have the actors from international organizations, and the actors from the other ministries are also engaged in the process. So you need to manage them all, which means that you need to have a proper coordination. So IPA is not limited to the technical details only. It is more than that. We are the coordination unit, for example, and we receive many different questions from different ministries, different institutions. This IPA issues actually made our department is the main cross-cutting and the coordinating unit, and we need to answer all the questions actually. And also the GMM has their own projects, for example, and some of those projects are funded by EU, and our Ministry has also projects, and some of them are IPA projects funded by EU, but some of them are funded by the ministry itself. However, thanks to IPA, you have a huge coordination capacity. We didn't estimate that we would have such an enlarged coordination capacity at the end of this IPA process, but this is what happened, which makes us quite happy because we have many cross-cutting issues, and as a leading institution, we have become the main hub actually here. So in IPA 2 process, we better understood the process and how it works, and its functionality is now more clear and visible for us, and I am sure that in IPA 3 process we will be more effective. And through an IPAC process, we will be more efficient. So we are the national IPAC coordinating unit, but we have many other ministries engaged in this process. We have the EU institutions as well, and everyone has their own critical role, and we better understand who is doing what in IPA2 process, because we have better indicators now and we have better functions now. But now we will start IPA3 process, and instead of making radical changes, instead of changing or transforming the system completely, we need to focus on small revisions only so that the system may continue in the same way with a better functionality, of course. And I also have another important observation. Our relation with EU has a direct impact on our financial aspects as well, and I would like to give you statistical information. Ministry of Interior received 125 million euro funds in 2015, and in 2020 this 120 million euro has decreased only 5 million euro. But later on, we managed to increase this number to 30 million euro in 2021 IPA period. So these amounts may decrease, may increase. So we should keep our IPA units more active than ever, actually, because it is easy to stop their work immediately. You can assign the people working in IPA unit to other units, and you may stop IPA work, but you will not be able to revive the IPA work afterwards immediately. So we need to keep IPA units alive and functional and active as much as we can do. We need to protect the IPA units, actually. That's quite important, because we cannot only focus on the numbers or figures. Maybe this year we have a lower budget, but next year we will go beyond that. We will improve our capacity. So we need to protect the coordination. We need to protect the IPA units and its functions so that we can have better implementation as leading institutions. So I would like to end my words by saying that, and thank you very much, Barbaros Bey, for giving me the floor. And as the annual program authority, it's quite important for us, and I would like to thank CFCU for their coordination, and my team is also here, and I would like to thank them very much. You all know them, and I would like to thank them for their contribution. And I also would like to thank the EU presidency and the delegation. All the works were quite effective and were quite productive, and those panels were also very successful for all of us. So thank you very much for giving me the floor. Özkan Bey, actually, you received many applause, and you have become the joint voice of many people, and you also touch upon a very important topic. We conduct the result-oriented monitoring of our projects, and we need to improve the system, and the NIPAC also has a huge effort here, and all those structures are difficult to establish, so we need to keep their functionality in the future.
So while having decisions in regards to the system, we need to take all these into consideration. We need to use our human resources much actively, and we need to put all our efforts within this perspective. So you have contributed greatly. Thank you so much. We have started with Ahmed, and let's conclude the session with Ahmed. You have stated the contributions of ROM project, and I would like to ask to Ahmed, what do you think? What were the contributions? What were the gains from ROM projects when we think about your projects? Thank you. I'd like to share my opinions briefly. Thanks to the panel, I just refreshed my memory and knowledge. I acquired updated information in regard to other sectors, and we have heard about hopeful views. So thank you very much. We also pay great importance to positive atmosphere, and with this positive atmosphere, we hope to have new collaborations and new projects. As you do know, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Directorate for EU Affairs have regulation, and other than coordinating the financial structure, they are also monitoring the implementation of projects. And for this purpose, for IPA 2 phase in the programming years of 2014 to 2016, there were sectors and subsectors. And also they have monitored IPA 1 projects. They have paid visits for these monitoring purposes. Independent experts' evaluation is quite important for final beneficiary units, and for the leading institution we acquire awareness with these contributions. Through 2021, we had 16 ROM activities, and as a consequence of ROM monitoring, the impact, the efficacy, effectiveness, and sustainability of our projects have been examined, and we acquired great findings to lead our way for the new projects and for ongoing projects as well. Target indicator achievements were all evaluated. For the ongoing projects, in collaboration between stakeholders were strengthened through the contributions, and what should we do is now quite clear. Our Director General is the leading institution for Judiciary Sector projects. We do play an active role, and within the scope of ROM findings, we do have an effective coordination between institutions, and also we do follow up the activities quite closely. Between different stakeholders, coordination is much efficiently realized with ROM findings. Also, as IPA unit, we hope to have a unit which learns and teaches. And we had training activities so far, and we will be continuing those training activities in the future periods as well. What we are trying to do is to fully understand the situation, and we would like to be the practitioners and also the ones who have theoretical knowledge. While concluding my speech, I would like to thank the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and all contributing institutions and organizations. Thank you very much for listening to me. If you do excuse me, I will conclude my speech today in the first session of ROM seminar. We were gathered for the result-oriented achievements in the home affairs, fundamental rights, and judiciary sectors. We got the opinions of our leading institutions. Surely there are different activities for monitoring. We do monitor contracts for projects, and subsectoral and sectoral monitoring activities are being implemented. And surely there are contributions to the system and to the sectors. our colleagues have narrated it quite nicely. We should have much measurable and comparable findings to understand it in a better way. IPA 3 phase have started and very intensely activities are being carried out. So hopefully similar approaches will adapt to the benefits of projects and to the sectors. I would like to thank you for your participations. I would like to thank our panelists and online participants, to the Directorate for EU Affairs, to the EU delegation to Turkey, and to all our participants. And one thanks goes from us to you. Let's have a picture all together, please.
Çok teşekkür ediyoruz değerli katkılarınızdan ötürü.
Thank you very much for your contributions. We had a very fruitful panel.
Ben de hatırlatmalarımı tekrarlayayım.
And I will just remind you one thing. We will have another panel. And after that, we will have closure and assessment. After that, we will have a mini surprise. Please do stick with us till the end of the day.
Sonrasında zaten öğle yemeği
And we will have closing with lunch. Thank you once again.
Evet, bir sonraki panelimizde geçmeden
And
önce
before heading to the next panel, we will have a 10 minutes coffee break.
Sí.
Evet sevgili misafirler.
Esteemed participants, we have drank our coffees, we have chatted, and after this nice coffee break, we are here. And once again, hello to everyone who are watching us from YouTube. We will be continuing with our next panel with the title of Result-Oriented Achievements in the Civil Society. Our moderator will be Civil Society Development Center's General Coordinator Tezcan Erap Abay. Welcome. And I will be inviting our panelists, Ministry of Interior Head of Department of Foreign Relations of General Directorate of Civil Society Relations, Ahmet Türköz. Delegation of the European Union to Turkey, Head of Section for Civil Society, Fundamental Rights, Judiciary and Home Affairs, Mr. Alexander Fürke. And finally, Minister of Foreign Affairs Directorate for EU Affairs, Head of Project Implementation Department, Ahmet Hakan Atik. Great, welcome. Our moderator and panelists are all here. Please kindly take your seats. And I will be leaving the floor to our moderator. This is the last panel of today and the whole program. We will have a conclusion part next to this, and we will have a surprise for you. Hello. Thank you so much. Firstly, welcome to the sixth and final panel of this seminar. Civil society is the topic of the panel, and we will be concluding the day with this exceptional issue. I mean, if you ask a civil society actor to ask questions to certain actors, I would be also choosing these panelists actually. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to direct our questions and moderate the session. Today in Turkey, I will be in a position which numerous people would like to be in my position actually. I have lots of questions, but I will be directing my questions within the framework of the scope of this project, surely. But also, I will take the advantage of being the last panelist here. So, rather than the technicalities of the project, I am planning to have a general approach to this sector. Surely we are limited to the purposes of this project, but I think we can have certain flexibility. Of course, I will be asking about the gains of IPA projects, and we will have evaluations. However, together with that, we will figure out the institutions' relations with civil society as well. And we have three valuable panelists. The first one is from Ministry of Interior, from the General Directorate of Civil Society, Head of Department of Foreign Relations. Ahmet Türköz is our first panelist, and then we will continue with EU Delegation and Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Ministry of Interior is somehow a challenging institution for civil society. They do create safety, security, and also they do identify the limitations when it comes to the exercise of the rights. And when we check the history, first time in Turkey, Ministry of Interior is the institution which responds to the needs of civil society. They need to regulate, they need to identify the borders of this sector, and they are the main actors. And what will we be talking about today? Ministry of Interior's civil society projects gains will be our topic. However, in which we will be talking about the scope, we will be talking about the needs, requirements of this projects as well. The relation of Ministry of Interior and civil society has a rooted relation, and we were just having jokes around to what extent we can discuss all those issues. And when we think about the timeline in 1949, community regulations have been prepared, and the Ministry of Interior was the responsible institution for that regulation. And very clearly, we can see the impact of even that first regulation. At first, they tried to discuss. They started to discuss the regulation, but Ministry of Interior didn't accept the regulation. But then Ministry of Foreign Affairs convinced Ministry of Interior, and they do accept the community regulation. And then in 46, in 70s, in 82, there were revisions. And the bureaucracy of Ministry of Interior has this dual relationship with civil society, both for the identification of limits and for the regulation of those rights. And indeed, the general scope has changed after the amendments to the law on civil rights. And Ahmet Bey most probably will be giving us the details. But we had this reform process. It was a very significant process. And that reform caused a transformation for the whole history of Turkey, from the candidacy to EU to these projects. We have experienced lots of things, and indeed, while experiencing that transformation process, there have been series of IPA projects, IPA programs, directly by the head of Department of Associations to the Ministry of Interior. Ahmet, which projects have you implemented in this process, and what kind of gains did you acquire, and to what extent you get contributions from these projects? In this period, we are trying to understand the role of projects within that transformation process. Thank you, Tezcan. Firstly, I would like to extend my best regards to our participants. It is such a pleasure for me to be with the stakeholders of the process. And we are here to represent civil society sector. I would like to thank the Directorate for European Union Relations, and I would like to thank the EU delegation for this opportunity. And surely there is a deep-rooted relation, as you have stated. In 1949, we had the first regulation in regard to civil society, but certain associations have been established during the Ottoman period, as it was the similar timing for Europe, and even for the political parties. They were abiding the regulations in the law published on 1949. Then unions, law on unions have been enacted. Then we had amendments to the available regulations. Of course, in the Ottoman time, we had certain civil society structures which are quite similar to the associations, but this is the modern time, so we will be focusing on that phase as well. And Ministry of Interior is an important actor in the field. We are providing services, we are keeping the registries, records, and that's why we cannot just disregard the role of Ministry of Interior. First, I will be answering John's question about IPA projects and the contributions of them. Unfortunately, so far we have implemented limited number of projects, one. And you may ask, why are you here then with one project? But indeed, we are always involved with institutions who are implementing IPA projects. We do collaborate and we do work together. And their experiences and knowledge are already in our practice. We have implemented one project lasted for 24 months, and it was about public NGO collaboration. It was a technical assistance project, and we were the main beneficiary, and co-beneficiary was the main directorate of EU relations. Surely, I am delighted to say that we have increased our institutional capacity, and with the experience and young dynamic colleagues, we have implemented different projects. I would like to thank my team for their efforts and contributions, by the way. And the budget was 2.6 million euros. We also provided 260,000 euros as the state. We had capacity building trainings, and NGO representatives benefited from these trainings. So in order to create networks and collaboration, we had civil society days in 20 provinces. When we check the number of associations, actually the numbers are not that low. We had over 1,200 associations in Turkey, and in those 20 provinces, we met with a lot of them. And within the period, other than having improved collaboration, we had certain outputs from this activities. The first one was the establishment of information center. In that information center, NGO and public institutions could benefit from that database. They would be finding certain documents to assess their activities, how to access the funds, what are the best practices in the field, etc. So this database is still active. It is a digital environment providing information to the interested bodies. And we established a secretariat to we were asked to establish a secretariat to support the relations in between NGOs and public institutions. At that time, we were preparing the legal basis of that. And we thought that why having a secretariat, not a department particularly for that purpose. And now I am here as the head of the Department of Foreign Relations, but I am conducting duties in civil society engagement in order to support the cooperation and relations between NGOs and public institutions. We are serving everyone. And these are the outcomes of that EU-funded project. As the organization, we have built a perspective. We had certain alterations in the structure. Thanks to these outcomes, as I've stated, we have established a department for this purpose. And civil society and Ministry of Interior had lots of activities together. We had regulations and laws to improve the situation and relations. For example, in the third package in this transformation reform period, we had this association department nearly solely focusing on the safety, security side of the area, but then we turned it into Department of Associations, which has branches in provisions, and they were just regulating the relations. They were assisting the relations. And sadly, unfortunately, in many areas, they use the old version of that department actually, but it was, as I've stated, mostly focusing on the security side of these activities, but now we have transformed it. It is based on collaboration and cooperation. We need to change our mindsets with these improvements as well. So I just wanted to state this. And now we have a law enacted, law number 5253, which gives all the freedom and flexibility to associations to run their activities. And since 2014, there is an increase in the budget of associations by 341%. And how did we achieve such an increase? After the reforms within the accession process with EU, we had improvements in the system, and we provided this opportunity. And then we have established the General Directorate of Civil Society Relations in 2018. It was like putting the crown in this positive atmosphere, actually. Surely IPA experiences contributed hugely to our institutional capacity. A very young, dynamic team is putting all their efforts in such activities, and we didn't want to waste that knowledge actually, because we were working with them during the project, and then with that team we have produced new projects. We benefited from national public sources. Some international funds were also available, but in order to increase the institutional capacity and improvement of legal framework, we had lots of efforts, and in the recent period, by the way, we had opportunity to have some projects in regard to digital transformation as well. So if you ask me what were the gains with this young dynamic team, we just see new horizons. And by the way, sector is quite delighted with the improvements. They now are quite happy, and nearly 21,000 people participated to one questionnaire. I mean, this is a very huge number. If we just remember that the total number of associations is 122,000, we reached out to 21,000 people. We ask their opinions, and they wanted to see the continuation of such projects. They do say, okay, we are collaborating with NGOs who are in our field. However, in the framework that you have created, we gather with people who are not thinking alike with us, so we do enjoy each other's views, and we exchange our experiences. So I can say that this project contributed to our institutional capacity and to the NGO's perspective. In the second tour, we will be going into the details of that transformation process, that reform process, and also the regulations. And we will be talking about what has changed in civil society, what is the current situation, and what could be the opportunities for the future if we think about the security, safety, and freedoms. What kind of a role could these programs have to contribute in these terms? But now I will proceed with Alexander Frike from Delegation of European Union to Turkey. He is the General Director. He is the Head of Section for Civil Society, Fundamental Rights, Judiciary, and Home Affairs. European Union Delegation contributes hugely to Turkey, and I believe it is the 21st year of delegation here in that respect, not just for the funds, but also for the preservation, protection of variety in civil society. They were involved for the macropolitic atmosphere. They are one of the crucial institutions, and over 20 years they are collaborating with public institutions and also civil society. Maybe EU delegation to Turkey is one of the most experienced institutions in the field. I mean, for the enlargement director, they have a guideline. Maybe you have heard about that before before publishing the manual. Indeed, European Union delegation published such a manual in 2009. They have a vast experience in civil society sector, and from time to time, they provide evaluations in midterms. They have ex-post evaluations and civil society midterm monitoring evaluations are still ongoing, and that's why I would like to ask Mr. Alexander Frike, within the light of your evaluations, what kind of contributions did this process provide to Turkey in civil society?
Yeah, thank you, Tess-Can. Good morning to the audience. I'm very happy to be here and join this very esteemed panel and this conference indeed. I'm well aware that this is the last panel, but of course for those that work with civil society, I think I dare say that it's probably also, of course, the most interesting or emotional panel to be on. So I'm very proud to be part of the process of using pre-accession assistance to work and support Turkish civil society, and of course to see how civil society can contribute to reforms in Turkey and the EU integration process that has been ongoing for indeed some time. Now, Tezcan, you of course put a lot of responsibility on us with your introduction. You sort of put up the expectations. I'm afraid that I have to lower that a little bit. Of course, I think, yes, indeed, the European Union, the European Commission has learned and has learned to appreciate cooperating with civil society during the last 2-3 decades, as have other actors, and there are reasons for that, of course, and I will come to that in a second. Now, let me first maybe indeed give you some figures to start off. So during IPA 1, I think all of you here know that here I refer to the period 2007 to 2013. Approximately 150 million euros were provided to civil society organizations in order to help develop strong democratic institutions and to promote pluralism and the values of European integration in Turkey. Now, so if we compare that to the IPA 2 framework, so the following period, 2014 to 2020, which in a way is coming to an end in terms of implementation, civil society indeed has been identified as a subsector under democracy and governance, and here the rationale behind this was or is to further enhance the role of civil society to contribute to reform and democratization processes in Turkey, and to emphasize the support civil society can give to the development of a legal and political and social environment that is conducive for active citizenship. Now, during that period, we have allocated and programmed, some of this is still in implementation, approximately 170 million euros. And I should say, because I'm talking to a very expert audience here, that these figures do not include the European Commission's Human Rights and Democracy Program, which of course also has a Turkey window. Now, this is of course a huge investment of the EU, and it proves the importance the EU attaches to the role civil society plays to foster a functioning democracy. The EU, in fact, strongly believes that civil society occupies an important position in the development dialogue. It provides opportunities to bring communities together for collective action. It can mobilize society to articulate demands and voice concerns at local, national, and international level, of course. It enhances, and I think this is important here, Ahmed Bey, it enhances the process and quality of policy making, monitors the impact and the gaps of regulation, and thereby plays an important role in holding governments accountable. And I think this is really one of the functions that civil society plays that cannot be overestimated. And finally, civil society can equally take on tasks of service delivery. So I just want to mention this here for completeness, not to replace, well, at least that's my view, not to replace the state, but to complement in areas where, for certain times, for certain tasks, greater flexibility or speed is required, and there, of course, we can rely on the strengths that civil society organization have. Now, Tezcan, you mentioned the importance of evaluation and the importance that the EU, the Commission, pays to conducting regular and systematic evaluations. And indeed, there has recently been, and this is complementary to the ROM exercises, of course, that brings us together here. There has been recently an ex post evaluation to assess EU support for civil society implemented actually under the IPA 1 period, mainly via the Turkish authorities. But the purpose, of course, of this evaluation, as is the case with all evaluations, was forward-looking to see, how the support actually impacted the developments in the sector up until today. Now, the evaluation reviewed some key interventions, and I think we will hear about them in more detail by other colleagues. It included the I think, well-known grant schemes, Civil Society Dialogue and Civil Society Support Program, implemented by the lead institution, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, for actually a very long time period. We had, I think, on the Civil Society Support Program, we have been recently you've been doing round 3. The Civil Society Dialogue has even been in round 5, so long-standing support programs. But the evaluation also included important projects in the cultural sector. And the main question, of course, is to what extent EU-funded interventions have managed to achieve, their objectives, but it focused on 2 priorities. The first one, to what extent the projects contributed to improving the environment for active citizenship. And the second priority, increasing the capacities of organized active citizens. So these were the priorities looked at by the evaluation. Now, as a result, and it was recently completed, there was broad recognition of a critical role that indeed EU's overall investment in human capital has played in Turkey, both with regard to civil society organizations, but also with regard to the sort of responsible authorities or beneficiary institutions, the cooperation partners, let's say, of the EU, so the Ministry of Interior, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but also the Ministry of Culture and Tourism, for example. All projects, and I think this is very much in line with what we have seen coming out of the ROM exercises. All projects have a strong relevance in terms of addressing the general needs of civil society organizations. And the evaluation indeed specifically acknowledged the engagement from the lead institution in supporting civil society in Turkey. Now, nevertheless, it also observed that there has been less progress in terms of the first priority I mentioned on improving the legal framework and the political environment, where indeed I think it's fair to say that security concerns following the attempted coup of July 2016 have led to a more limited space for civil society. So in the latest years, we have not been able to effectively address one of the main priorities that is also mentioned in the guidelines that the Commission has in terms of how we want to work with civil society, namely this whole dimension of putting in place an enabling environment by improving the regulatory framework. So I think it is important that we build and consolidate the achievements, the significant achievements made during the preceding time frame, and I think Ahmed Bey referred to the quite substantial reform processes that have been ongoing in Turkey over the last 20 years. And of course, when we do that, maybe in the upcoming period, when Turkey is doing that, we have to sustain the very positive results that have been achieved with IPA support in terms of strengthening the capacities of civil society organizations to really effectively work on their mandate and in line with their vocational scope. So I think this is one one lesson that I see coming out of this evaluation, but it's in a way also supported, I think, by the ROM exercise. And it's a lesson Turkey could work on in partnership with the EU, maybe in the upcoming IPA 3 period. Now, Tess-John, do I have 2 more minutes, or? Yeah. If I can just, I want to add, and I hope we have a second round then, but I just a few words on the ROM exercise itself. So in the area of civil society, well, I think this has been emphasized in previous panels. The Commission pays enormous importance to this. It is a very important exercise that gives us, if you want, a snapshot of where a project is going, and it gives us assurance in terms of added value of the projects that are being implemented with EU support, with EU funding. And it gives us assurance on, do we get value for money in the end? So that is very much behind this whole result-oriented monitoring system that has been set up. Now, in the area of civil society, under this phase 2 or 3 that we discuss here, there have been 13 projects subject to ROMs, and the results are very positive. So it demonstrates, I think, there's overall strong relevance, efficiency, and effectiveness. And I want to underline that this speaks I think this speaks very much for the high commitment, for the professionalism of the Turkish partner institutions here, and of course also the civil society stakeholders. Now, correctly applying EU rules in such a result-oriented manner is of course not always that straightforward. It can be a challenging task, so congratulations there, I think, to our joint work, and I see the EU delegation as part of this. Now, why I'm asking for 2 more minutes, and I think I only consumed 1. I want to say that one aspect I think that needs to be, and this is more reflection that I want to put forward here, that could be better captured, is the sectoral impact. So how can we make sure that IPA support or financial cooperation in general, contributes to sector-level reforms and thus has this sort of lasting sustainable impact? And when we look at the different ROM reports, this is maybe an area where we could see a little bit more attention given to, i.e. how successful a specific project contributes to tackling sectoral objectives. And so I'm just putting this forward because I'm of course aware of there are intellectual or technical challenges related to that. And the first one is of course an issue of attribution. When we talk about outcome level reforms and linking this to a project. And the second big issue here is that when we talk about outcome level or sector level reforms, we always have a longer time lag. So I just wanted to sort of put this forward. Thank you, Tess-John.
Thank you very much, Alexander. We will have second term, so you can complement all the other things. Alexander'a da çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Tabii bu 20 yılın
Thank you very much, dear Alexander Frike. Within just 10 minutes, he managed to give us a snapshot of the last 20 years, and that's not an easy job, actually. And as Alexander mentioned, the results of the projects and the activities of the project needs to be interlinked with each other, and we need to consider the external environment, the civil factor, actually, since 2016. Both for Turkey and for the rest of the world, the human factors and the civil society has been playing an important role in the impact of the project. After Alexander, I would like to pass the microphone to Hakan Atik. Hakan Atik is the head of the project implementation department from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And you are representing the leading institution in terms of EU negotiation. So the General Secretariat of EU presidency has a different role in the civil society, and it is also not limited to allocating the funds. The type of relations that you have developed, you have good achievements in terms of civil society and its development in Turkey. So you are the leading institution, and you have been conducting all those works for the last 20 years. And in addition to that, you also are responsible for the civil society affairs as well. And all those are actually the cross-cutting issues, and you are also responsible for this cross-cutting field as well as the leading institution. So from this perspective, what is the place of civil society in Turkey's membership to EU? But this is not just a general question, actually. I would like to learn more about the background of that. We know that the civil society participation is highly crucial for EU process, and the EU process is not only limited with the relation between the states, so the citizens and the civil society needs to be a part of it. So we are quite familiar with this discourse, actually, but this is not we are expecting to hear you. We would like to hear in more detailed manner. I mean, what's happening in the kitchen, what's happening in the background. So we are expecting to hear the answers of the difficult questions. Thank you very much, Tezcan Bey. We are quite familiar with tackling the difficult questions. So I believe we will be able to overcome this. At the beginning of this panel, we are discussing the result-oriented monitoring system, and I have observed that that's a very good chance to reflect all our successful stories. And therefore, I would like to thank EU delegation to Turkey, EU institutions, and the implementing bodies and institutions of those projects. I would like to thank them very much, and I would like to convey my gratitude to all of them. And I would like also welcome you on behalf of me and my institution. For a very long time, we have been conducting this negotiation process for the full membership to EU. So that's a journey, a very long-lasting journey for us. And as you may, I'm not go back to 1960s, actually. I will not start from that much past, but let's go back to 2005. In 2005, Turkey was declared as the official candidate for EU membership, and it was October 2005. And 6 months before that, there was a very significant decision taken by the European Commission. In 2004, 10 new countries joined the EU, and that was a significant development for the expansion of EU. And after that expansion period, European Commission decided that, okay, we are expanding, we have new communities, new cultures, joined the EU. So what are the missing points? What are the difficult and what are the challenges here? And to what extent the communities and the people know each other? Is there any problem in this respect? If so, how can we overcome those problems? And by asking those questions, EU actually took an initiative, and they declared a communique that was called the civil society dialogue between European Union countries and the candidate countries. So that was quite meaningful for Turkey, and we were quite interested in civil society, and we still are. And it is getting more value every day, and we are focusing on the civil society since then. And we had the General Secretariat of EU Affairs at that time, and that secretariat was responsible for establishing the relations with the civil society. So Turkey was actually paying attention to implement that decision of EU, because the human rights, fundamental rights, democracy, the rule of law were quite important, and how civil society can contribute to those values. And we pay attention to those facts. And we always highlight the importance of civil society and how can we improve the situation. So we actually started to design our projects in this line. And in 2008, there was a program created in order to focus on the civil society dialogue between Turkey and EU, and those were the first steps actually. So how can we eliminate the concerns or hesitation of the societies living together, and how can we engage everyone in the same pot? And that was the main concern in the civil society action. And this dialogue was started in 2008, and now we are in the sixth stage of the civil society, and we also celebrated its 10th year anniversary with a very big event, including all the sectors actually, the chambers, cooperatives, civil society representatives, public institutions, universities, academies. All the institutions were engaged in the process actually. And that was an expanded dialogue, a grand scheme actually was conducted. In 2021, we implemented the sixth version of this dialogue, and we are quite happy and we are quite proud of this program. So retrospectively, the second important milestone is in the 2014. 2014 is the beginning of IPA 2, and the sectoral perspective was embraced by the Commission, and the IPA financial assistance mechanism started to contribute to the sectors, and we started to have a sectoral perspective. Environment, agriculture, energy, transportation were the main sectors that we are all quite familiar, but on top of them, home affairs, justice, civil society has also become the sectors included in IPA process. And this development made all our actions in a more concrete actions. And we managed to reflect our efforts before the EU thanks to these developments as well. And as Alexander Frika has mentioned, civil society was accepted as a subsector, and Ministry of EU Affairs was the leading institution at that time, and they took the responsibility. This strengthened our position at that time, because before that we conducted various projects and programs addressing civil society support, but we managed to turn all that support into a more systematic manner, and we had a better environment to run all the projects systematically. What stakeholders would come together under the civil society development sector, for example. We started to discuss those topics. What are the needs of the sector? What we need to do in order to close the gap? And we also had mutual negotiations at that time. And as a result of those negotiations, we identified 4 priority area. So we need to establish a strong bridge and relation between civil society and the public. That was the main need. And also we need to strengthen the capacity of civil society organizations so that they would have a more sustainable structure. That was the second priority area. And also active citizen engagement comes first. In order to protect the human rights, the values that we deserve, and make all those rights functional for everyone, and equal accession could only be provided by creating the eligible environment for everyone. And that was the third priority area for us. And the last priority area, the fourth one, is related to an ongoing process since 2008, which is the improvement of civil society dialogue, including more sectors and themes, actually. So we engaged the civil society dialogue, we enlarged the civil society dialogue. So 2005 till 2014, we had many achievements, and those were the turning points for us all. And we would like to take our civil society organizations to the level that they all desired. And we will continue all our efforts in the future as we did in the past, in line with the European Union's positive approach. So we will do all our responsibilities as a leading institution, as a public institution, and as a beneficiary, or as a unit under NIPAC. So we have many responsibilities and roles. Of course, this brings along some disadvantages, yet its advantages are even more than disadvantages. So we will give hand in hand with all our stakeholders, and we will keep all our achievements sustainable for the future, thanks to the positive attitudes of the European Union as well. And we also have a very important center. The Civil Society Development Center is a very significant actor, and we believe that there will be more institutions joining the process. Yeah, thank you very much. Maybe in the second round, we will explain the process. So in the second round, it will be shorter than the first round, actually. So I kindly ask you keep it shorter and as much dynamic as possible. So I would like to start with the second round questions. Ahmet Bey, you talk about a very wide and historical perspective, and you explain our cultural assets.
And within that, we have talked about transformations in the reform period. We talked about information center and other improvements. So, have we reached the targeted level with these projects, with these improvements? Was that the point that we have desired in the beginning? And when we evaluate the situation in general, and also with an IPA perspective, what were the problems back in the past, and what should we do in the future? So while evaluating the current situation, I will be asking your opinions for future possible actions. There is such a nice saying that the only thing does not change is the change itself. I mean, civil society sector is a very dynamic one. There are new requirements, new needs, and we need to combat with new problems, surely. And as we are the leading institution, we need to improve ourselves constantly. I would like to provide an answer to your question. What was the position of our institution in the past, and now what should we do? It is better to briefly explain all these situations. Surely with IPA projects and with accession period, we started to be an institution who acts more together with civil society and an institution which is open to communication. In the past, Ministry of Interior was mostly focusing on security and safety measures. However, now we are in a collaborative manner and acting together with our stakeholders. Surely we are not just an institution providing services, but we also acquire services from civil society. We have their contributions as well. Indeed, after IPA project, we started to have NGO visits, which is also in our annual action targets. Our Director General, our administratives, and also our provincial administrators to have visits to NGOs. In 2 years, we have visited 5,200 NGOs in their own premises. We have discussed the issues. We have heard about their needs. And what have we gained in this process? As it has been stated by Özkan in the previous session, we acquired experience to cooperate with other institutions. We have acquired a new culture for negotiations, for finding a common point with others. And also another issue is that our ministry has established advisory council. And in that advisory council, we do have representatives from every single sector, actually, from sports to culture, from human rights advocates to any field that you can imagine. Actually, in that advisory council, we do discuss all the issues and identify the needs of society to form our policies in line with that. And as our Director General, since 2010, we are providing funds to the NGOs in order, this is for NGOs to realize themselves. And also, from the perspective of NGOs, they have improved their own institutional capacity. For example, yours, Civil Society Development Center produces numerous results, and you have this great institutional experience and knowledge. And I would like to have a critic. Being such professional in civil society sector is not a desired thing, I believe, but in a positive manner, I can say that yes, there is a certain professionalism in civil society side, and civil society organizations have improved their networks. I mean, in our projects, for example, we do have study visits, and in twinning projects, in other projects, in programs, civil society organizations find the opportunity to extend their networks with international institutions and organizations. So with the funds also, they found an opportunity to implement their activities. They had this transformation in their institutional structure as well. We are focusing on the results. I mean, yes, we are having results-oriented monitoring, but ROM occurs at the end of the process. If you just check the process, there are lots of improvements, lots of things that we need to pay attention. Impact analysis could be a very good tool to identify, understand these processes as well. I mean, on the paper, it could get great. However, maybe the process could give us certain clues about the system. You have used your 5 times, but we may have a third round for that professionalism side. I would like to ask you one other question in the third part. I don't want to push the limits of our participants, but okay, we will have a very fast last tour, and we are now abusing being the last panel, and we will continue with Alexander. Now we are entering a new phase, and IPA IPA 3 is not just a financing year, but also in terms of implementations, practices, there will be a new era, and we have the experience, knowledge of a long period. Within the light of that, civil society, public institutions, and also EU delegation. What should be the roles of these actors, and how can we have much effective results? What can we do for these effective results? If you take this as a pillar, civil society, public institutions, and EU delegation, in accordance with your experience, what are the critical roles to have efficient results?
Thank you, Tess-Can, for the question. Now, I already touched upon the different functions of civil society in our societies. Now, I think government, public administration naturally has a rule-setting role and also supervisory responsibilities, and I think you referred to that even in your introductory remarks. Ahmed Bey also alluded several times to that. The approach advocated by the EU is one of facilitation, and that is also, of course, then very much the role or the approach that would need to be foreseen for the EU delegation. And facilitation here means, in a way, the provision of an enabling environment that very much helps to unleash the full potential of that civil society organizations, that active citizens can play in our societies. So I think that's on the rules as such. Now, for the upcoming period, you have not spoken about this, but I think it's quite an important development. So the Turkish government, the Ministry of Interior, is working on a civil society strategy. And obviously that strategy will be a very important document where the government will set out and specify its approach and reform commitments when it comes to collaboration with civil society in Turkey and the roles and function that the government would like to emphasize in this collaboration. Now, an area where we will be working on, I mean the EU, the Commission, with the Ministry of Interior and the Foreign Ministry, concerns voluntarism. And this, the work is a project in the pipeline, but I think it will also feature in the civil society strategy that will be soon put forward. Comprises also a review of applicable regulatory provisions and a review of the existing incentive structures for voluntary work. And of course, this is at the heart of what most civil society organizations are about. The Turkey report regularly refers to the need to strengthen public sector CSO collaboration, and indeed we had past successful projects in that area. You mentioned the project where you were lead responsible, Ahmed. There was also a very successful project with the Ministry of Family, Labor and Social Services. But overall, what I have not seen yet in Turkey emerging as sort of a more systematic framework that would regulate how civil society is being consulted, for example, when new legislative initiatives are being undertaken. So this is something where we as the European Commission even have rules on that. We have to publish a green paper and then a white paper and so on. So I think the issue of this sort of systematic system that should be put in place, that is still out there, and it might be an issue that features then also in the civil society strategy. And I'm smiling at you, Ahmed. Now, the last point I want to make, I think it's just a more general point, but now an issue that is increasingly becoming important for civil society in Turkey, but elsewhere as well, is I think the question of polarization. And this is very much a question for civil society itself to reflect on. So how can civil society contribute to strengthening cohesiveness in our societies? And think about the very polarized question of how we respond to the pandemic, vaccination campaigns. I think we all followed, it was constantly on the news, the story of the Australian Open and Djokovic, the tennis star, being vaccinated or not. Equally important, I think, the global challenge of migration. And in that sense, this question of what civil society can do to tackle increasing polarization is I think, of global significance. So a last thought I wanted to put in here.
Thank you very much, Alexander. Hakan Bey.
Mr. Hakan, you have provided a general framework in the first tour. You have talked about that 20 years of period. You talked about the cornerstones, and in 5 minutes, I would like to hear some concrete examples from you. Within that general framework, what are the concrete gains of this process? If the purpose is to have an evaluation in regards to results, let's have it in this 5 minutes, if possible. Thank you, Tezcan. Of course, in order to keep the first part short, I've talked about the gains, the positive sides, and I neglected the challenges, the difficulties that we have experienced. Civil society's importance in this accession period is huge, and I do believe that we need to meticulously focus on this area. However, the ups and downs in between in the relations of Turkey and EU in the political side, and also the cuts in the budgets are mainly reflected on the civil society sector. And Alexander's expectations for the future term could be only realized through supporting civil society. What were the gains? If we provide concrete examples, in the scope of four main principles, we had coordination studies with our stakeholders, with related institutions, ministries. And the most important problem was to strengthening the relation between public sector and civil society. Ministry of Family and Social Services had this important project, and together with the Department of Associations, we conducted a very successful project. Culture cannot be eliminated from this project. We have to include culture in every part of the civil society efforts, and surely Ministry of Culture and Tourism were involved in two projects. One of them lead to have the establishment of Turkish Archaeological History Museum in Gaziantep, and we have witnessed the support of EU also. And in Sinop, we have a continuation project for the culture institutes. Surely they were with us. We have developed a dialogue project among our culture institutes. Jean Monnet program is a communication, a collaboration project also in a manner. I mean, we try to increase the number of people who are educated and who are familiar with a European culture is a desired thing, and we expect them to introduce Turkish culture in Europe and observe European cultures and information and bring that experience to our Turkey. So far, we have conducted a successful implementation, and civil society has been added into the plan of development. So hopefully then we will see much better practices and implementations in the field. I would like to provide you some figures as well. 100 million euro is the total budget for the sector, and majority of the funds are coming from EU. For dialogue, we have spent 17 million euros, and after 2014, we had civil society support program. This is a grant program, and indeed, those are quite important gains under the title of Civil Society Dialogue. Over 600 partnership, 400 projects, and civil society, as I've stated earlier, is the most dynamic, most vivid actors of the accession process, and that's why we need to have a special focus on this area. By the way, those monitoring activities prove that our efforts are contributing to the current situation. NGOs' capacity have increased at the central level and at the local level. Though the participation to civil society organizations are not in the desired level, but there is an increase. There are networks and partnerships, and when we compare it with the past, there is again certain improvement thanks to these programs and projects. With the dialogue and grant programs that we implement are quite good, and our stakeholders do state that it is indeed better than many other programs. I will tell this to Alexander. Directorate of EU Affairs have to be in this process, and the funds for civil society should be in a process in which Directorate of EU Affairs is included. I mean, our involvement is quite important, direct or indirect, but we should be a part of this process because we are always in touch with them. We have numerous programs with them. So, thank you. And I promised to Ahmet for the last phase. While you were talking, you stated that there is a professionalism developed in civil society organizations. I am quite aware that you are academically also interested in this field, but not just thanks to the visits, but also through monitoring activities and supervisions. You are closely involved with civil society organizations. But I mean, you have the opportunity to observe them closely. 20 years ago, that professionalism discussion has started, but to me, it is just a myth. Will civil society get professional? Will have professionals? Will they degenerate it? they were just discussing all those, but my observation is that it is just a myth. In the end, they focus on their missions, and we do see such professionals very rarely indeed. I will provide an answer to you, and I would like to state a couple of things in regards to the response of Alexander as well. Yes, we do continue our strategic paper studies, and with a participatory approach, strategy document has been prepared to a certain extent, and now we submitted it to the institutions in order to get their views as well, including Directorate of EU Affairs as well, and Social Sciences University contributed it academically. They prepared it, and together with civil society organizations, they had roundtable meetings. There were certain activities to collect opinions and requests of civil society, and after getting the feedbacks of institutions, we will submit it to the president. Maybe after his approval, you may examine it fully. And when it, yes, in the development plan, we also included it. So in our legal regulations, we now prepared a draft for volunteerism. Actually, in Istanbul, Ankara, Izmir, Antep, we invited civil society organizations, and in Hacı Bayram University, they met with academia. We have informed them about the processes, what are the means of participation to the processes, what are the tax regulations, etc., etc. There are different expectations from the civil society organizations. I mean, in our geographical location, there are certain differences. Financial Action Task Force had a monitoring, and for the money laundering and terrorism, they have blacklisted to Turkey. Why? They are just saying you didn't have meticulous examination over this transactions, for example. And EU has a different monitoring activities or supervisions. I mean, there should be certain balance and clarification over the processes. I mean, yes, there are certain critics over the professionalism. Yes, I do know that it lasts for 20 years, and now I am a PhD student, actually. I have my PhD studies in political sciences. I'm trying to have my PhD thesis on migration and policies. I do see that some organizations are quite professional. There are certain purposes, for example, humanitarian aid, but their personnel costs, their rental costs are higher than their activity costs, expenses. I mean, when we say civil society organizations, those are voluntary organizations, and if you just take the activities to a professional level, and if you have expenditures in your personnel or in your transportation, etc., are higher than the activities itself, this is open to debate, I believe. And civil society organizations have certain activity fields, but in order to get benefit from certain funds, they do apply for different fields. Why? Because some requires these funds to stay on the field. They change their activity field. Those are the critics that I have and I have observed. A young, urban, well-educated people do work mainly on the civil society organizations, but I think that it should be open to every single person in the society. Yes, there are advantages and disadvantages, but we need to be careful about this framework, and we need to improve the current situation of civil society organizations as well. And one last thing, please do not have any neglect over the budget. I mean, in the budget, public institutions allocation has been decreased. However, we do continue hand by hand, so we shouldn't be neglected at that part. And thank you very much. I would like to state one thing. I wish that it was possible to share the draft strategic document with public before having the final approval of it. Now, in regard to sharing it with public, I believe there is no obstacles against that. And if you have shared it, people could participate, provide feedback willingly. Indeed, we have abused the time incredibly. Other than asking a question, I will ask Alexander and Hakan, do you have any further contributions before we conclude the meeting? Because we will proceed with the next part with Bülent and Andre. Thank you, Tezcan. There are lots of things to say, but I don't want to go beyond the limits of this meeting. Civil society is one of our priority areas to work with. We will continue our efforts, and in different areas there are different needs, and we will take all those into consideration. And with the understanding and financial aid of EU, hopefully generous financial aids will contribute to our future projects that we will conduct with our stakeholders. Hopefully, I mean, we are all part of the civil society. And I believe Alexander also sees it as a sign of professionalism. When we just take this tie off, we are a part of civil society, and hopefully we will meet the expectations of civil society with collaboration and funds coming with EU. Thank you very much for providing this opportunity.
Yeah, maybe at the end. Well, Hakan, I like the picture. I don't know, though you may have just put me in the conservative part of society. I don't know. I will reflect about that. Now, let me just say, I mean, for me as a foreigner, it's quite a privilege to live in Turkey, in this country, and work with civil society here. I mean, to work also with the public institutions, of course, with the colleagues there. But I want to say that and stress that maybe at the end, because I'm often very impressed by the commitment, by the diversity, and in particular by the creativeness and innovation capacity of Turkish civil society. And in a way, it makes me proud when we then receive, all of us, I think, positive feedback about the work we do and about the support that we can provide to their work. And I very much see that as a motivation for my work, but I also see that it has a great positive impact on the motivation of the colleagues in the delegation and beyond. Thank you.
Evet, bu
Yes, in this panel, we not only discuss the results of the project, but we also discuss the perspectives and experiences of various institutions in civil society sector. We have broadened our framework here, and there are different topics included in this process, and that's why we had difficulty to keep it in time. There are many topics that we need to discuss, actually. You most probably have many question marks on your mind as well. We could only manage to address just a small part of it, so please accept my apologies for that. Ahmet, Alexander, and Hakan, I would like to thank you very much for your contribution in this panel session. And I also would like to thank you very much, our participants, for your attention and your interest. So thank you very much for your contribution. It was a very intensive panel session. So let's have a family photo before you leave the stage. So this is the final panel session of these 2 days we spent together. Of course, there are many things to say, many things to discuss, yet we will keep them for the next events, and we will see each other very soon. So could you please take off your masks for a while, for the photo only? After this panel session, we will proceed to the evaluation session. We are not going to have any break. And after the evaluation session, we will have a surprise for you all. So let's give a big applause to our panelists for this panel session. We would like to thank you very much, our moderator and our panelists, for their contribution. So we will proceed to the evaluation panel session. We will proceed to the closure and assessment. And after the closure and assessment, we will have a surprise for you all. And after that, we will have lunch. So I kindly invite our speakers for the closure. Bülent Özcan, from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Directorate of EU Affairs. He is the Director General of Financial Cooperation and Project Implementation. I also kindly invite Andre Lees, from the Delegation of the European Union to Turkey, the Minister Counselor, Head of Financial Cooperation. So let's have the closure and the evaluation session. The floor is yours. Esteemed participants and esteemed audience who are following our panel session on social media, and most importantly, those who still stay with us after 1.5 days despite the COVID-19 pandemic. I would like to thank you very much for your patience and for your attention. Actually, we have the most difficult part of this panel because we had many panel sessions, we discussed many informations, and we learned a lot about the projects. So we would like to make a summary of all those discussions. So we will do our best. So we're not going to take much of your time. So as a moderator and the speaker of this session, my name is Bülent Özcan. I am working as the Director General of Financial Cooperation and Project Implementation. And we also have Andre Lees, esteemed colleague of us from the Delegation of European Union to Turkey. We will be together with you in this final session, and we will do our evaluation. We will only have 30 minutes in total, and if Andre allows me, I would like to start.
For the rounds. Okay, thank you so much. Değerli arkadaşlar,
Esteemed colleagues, within these 2 days, we focus on result-oriented monitoring meeting and the evaluation meeting, and we discussed many topics. So we have been implementing IPA in many different sectors, and we have been implementing IPA since 2007. And we have spent 2.1 billion euro sources within this period of time. And in this 2020 period, we have spent already 2.2 million euros. And we try to touch upon every detail in this panel session. And this ROM structure focuses on the eligibility, efficiency, effectiveness, and it addresses many similar issues. And what we understand from the ROM exercises is that we have very positive results for all sectors and institutions. The effectiveness of implementation, the beneficial side of the IPA projects and its contribution to the sectors are quite important for all of us, and we observe that we have reached the desired outcomes. And in this 1.5-day evaluation, we observed that all the participants have something in common. Some topics are quite cross-cutting for us. And I have taken note of those 4 important aspects, and I will talk about them, and then I will pass the microphone to my colleague, Andre. First of all, we have a fact here. We have an accelerated process, and the IPA sources has increased in Turkey, and it has decreased with the same speed as well. So all IPA actors had been negatively impacted by this result, actually. And the most important message that we have at the end of this 1.5 day is that our institutions within the IPA system do not want to face any stops in the flow of the funds. So we would like to continue our work as we have already accelerated it. So we would like to continue our IPA system at a certain level so that we will be able to contribute to our policies and our development. So the financial part is the most important message here that we need to focus on. And secondly, European Commission started to have the sectoral approach, and that was a quite correct step to take. And when we compare IPA 1 and IPA 2, we have similar results in ROM exercises and in other reports as well. We can understand that all the institutions actually show a deep ownership for the projects, and sectoral policies are designed in compliance with all the policies and standards, and their implementation are also positively impacted, and it provided a sustainability. So all in all, the sectoral approach increased the ownership, and so that all the projects still stay in the IPA system. So we had many colleagues from different sectors, and they all implied that the ownership in the projects, having a positive impact and touching the needs of the citizens were quite important. And the third important message is that that's an important message for all of us and for all the public institutions, actually. The most important impact created by IPA system is to improve the institutional capacity within the scope of public institutions, because public institutions are the main authorities who are designing, following, and monitoring the IPA projects and the IPA implementations, and all of them can speak foreign language. They know how to implement international standards and regulations, and they know of the EU rules. We have very competent team behind all those works, actually, and some of them are among us today. And we have a really core team, and we shouldn't lose that team. We should continue, we should maintain that structure in our public institutions, and that's the third message that we received in that panel session. And after this 1.5 day panel sessions, I made a fourth observation. IPA is a huge structure, including many different sectors, and those sectors impact the policies of the country, impacts the citizens' life, supports the social development and economic development. That's why IPA system plays a crucial role, especially in terms of cooperation and coordination among all representative institutions. And we need to share our experiences. We need to explain ourselves to each other. We need to explain the public ecosystem. And apart from that, we also need to focus on the local and central level institutions and organizations. And we need to be transparent to the citizens, and we need to reach the public in terms of a good communication skills. So I believe that's the summary of those 2 days. Actually, I could give you more numbers and figures, but all our colleagues has already mentioned about them, so I'm not going to repeat what they say. So that's my summary of these 4 days. So I will stop here and I will pass the microphone to Andre Lees to hear the evaluation of delegation of European Union. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much, Bülent. And first, thank you all for staying here and spend 2 days with us to share experiences on the work that you have done for implementing EU financial assistance and the results that you have achieved. And I would like first to thank the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Department of European Integration, for organizing this event. I mean, I think it's in many respects it is a success. And thank you for all of you, line ministries, institutions, civil society representatives, etc., for contributing to this work. And of course, the organizers of the event, the technical assistants, and obviously also my colleagues from the delegation. So this shows that this is a collective work, and that this work goes much beyond our little cubicle. I think that the first lesson that I see from this meeting is that there is a need for sharing experiences. And this is a unique opportunity that you have organized here today. And I really think that this is a model that should be continued. And as we discussed at the coffee break, maybe we should even expand it to include our colleagues from Brussels as well, from the Commission, or maybe even from the Parliament, Council, etc., so that they could feel the efforts which are being implemented and the results which are achieved, because from time to time, this does not come from report, it comes from exchanging experiences and from interactions with people as you did today. One of my lessons learned from this, and definitely we heard it several times, is that from sectors to sectors, there are experiences that can be shared with the other ones. And there is a need for explaining how we are working and what are the results being achieved. And that was also beneficial for you to share this experience between yourselves. We could see definitely that there are differences between sectors, but there are commonalities. Let me first go back to the purpose of monitoring and why we are here today. It's basically about accountability. It's accountability to our budget authority. We have money, we have to spend it, and we have to demonstrate results. But it's also accountability to the people and to the people in Turkey, that what we are doing means something for them. And you mentioned it, Hakan Bey, that we are all civil society. Yes, indeed. When we take a bus, when we buy food, when we are exposed to justice, when we deal with police, we are all civil society, and we all want to exercise our rights and benefit also from the protection that is needed from the state. So that is accountability, and that is what we need to achieve with the projects, and that's very difficult to do. What we heard today is that the results are excellent. I heard in the first session a 4.28 out of 5 average result. This is very high, and we can discuss about this. First, the relevance, and you mentioned very much the relevance. This is the highest score that you all have, which means that what you do means something and is useful. And this is the most important one. And I'm very happy to see that regardless of changes, we still have relevance in most cases. From time to time, there might be some issues to be rediscussed, but that means that the projects were well focused and that they were properly designed in the beginning, at least in terms of defining the objectives that we want to achieve. So that is relevance. Then we talk about efficiency, effectiveness, and sustainability, results and impact. In terms of efficiency, that's basically one of the purposes of monitoring. It's to have an outsider view of people who have a totally neutral view, that they are not pro or cons, they simply come and say, how can we do better in order to manage and to provide better and quicker results. So that was the purpose, and we saw that in the process, from a first mission to a second mission, there was a progress in terms of efficiency. So that means that you take the lessons and that you try to improve your system. That's about capacity building. What I missed from the presentations is not only the results seen from the point of view of the evaluators, but the results seen from your point of view. So what is the assessment of the usefulness of this exercise for yourself? Because basically this is a help for you, a help for us on how to better achieve results, and it would be also useful to have a quick survey on how you perceive the results of this exercise. Then effectiveness, it's about delivering the results, and there we see that basically you all are struggling with procedures, you are all struggling with preconditions, struggling with procurement, and also with the COVID crisis. And we see that there, of course, this can be improved. And there are different reasons for this. And we can see that the reasons may differ from one sector to another, and maybe we should look at it more closely. Definitely, we have two types of programs. Programs which deliver technical output, environment, transport, etc. Others which deliver policy outcomes and results. When we talk about technicalities, built wastewater treatment plan, we have technical constraints for this. We have preconditions. We need to have access to the land. We need to have the permits, etc. So that's something that is relatively straightforward but complex, and we need to still work on it. When we talk about policy development, and here we are talking about the judiciary, we are talking about civil society, etc., we see that indeed it is more challenging, that we definitely need to have a consensus on shared values and shared objectives. And from time to time, where we have had some setback, it's where we didn't have this full agreement, and that is linked, of course, to the discussion that you had this morning on the progress report. So this is also an area that is quite important. But still, what we see also from the point of view of effectiveness and impact as well, is that most of our projects had a result at sector level, at policy level. From time to time, we can really build the link between the projects and the sector results. From time to time, it's a little bit more complex, and we still have to work on this. This is the purpose of the exercise, and that is the last dimension, that is impact. Then sustainability. This is what Minister Kaimachi said in the beginning. He said, he recalled the motto of the project, each result is a beginning. And basically what he said is that he wants always to see that there is a continuation to a project, that the project is sustainable. And this is where we are still lagging behind. When I hear that we need to have additional funding, and this is legitimate, for continuing these activities, in a way we failed, because a project should be self-contained. At the end of a project, the results should be sustainable by themselves, with budget funding from the state, with other activities being implemented, etc. So we still have to look at this aspect of sustainability, meaning that what we have built during project implementation continues to have effect after project implementation. And in fact, this is the whole purpose of financial assistance, especially the one that is linked to policy reforms. This one is supposed to stop at the time of accession. So it's meant to stop. While the one that is supporting policies after accession, so the structural funds, this is of course something that needs to continue after accession, and for which capacity building needs to be made. And we still have to look at what are the consequences for these various aspects. I want to mention as well, if I'm still allowed 1 minute.
Sure.
One very important aspect that has been mentioned, the sector approach, and this was done this morning, and the fact that this assistance opens a dialogue between sectors on sharing objectives and defining common objectives. So we have to get out from the project approach to the sector approach. This was done under IPA 2. This proved it has effect, and this has to be continued. And this is also something that is important, so that public administration and ourselves do not work in silos. And then final element, which was highlighted in many of the result-oriented monitoring reports, it's the horizontal aspects, and one particular one, which is gender equality. and women empowerment, where we see that you all made efforts to include this dimension on the project, but still we have difficulties to measure it, to have proper sex disaggregated data that demonstrate the impact of this level, and that's definitely one of the priorities of this present European Commission, and that we want to share with you as well. Thank you very much.
Andre çok teşekkürler. Aslında birçok noktada
Thank you very much, Andre. We have reached the common results in many projects, actually. This is what we have observed in those panel sessions, and this also shows that all the messages that are given here are the correct messages for all the institutions. So we will proceed to the second round, and we're going to finish the session. So I would like to focus on a new structure here. We actually shifted to presidential system, and after the presidential system was activated, we also prepared an action plan altogether, identifying what is missing in IPA program, and we identified 5 main objectives, and we base all our projects and works on those 5 main objectives. So I would like to remind you those 5 main objectives. First of all, the performance-oriented approach. We need to accelerate the processes. We already have a delay. The IPA implementation is between 2014 and 2020, but the implementation was only started in 2016. And when we have the action plan, we actually had 11% of the fund usage, and our numbers and the ratios were quite low actually at the beginning in terms of implementation of IPA. So in this 2.5-year performance of the institutions, we see that they have improved their implementation, they have improved their performance. Of course, there are some challenging topics here, yet we managed to solve some of our problems, and especially our European Union delegation to Turkey. And the positive approach contributed a lot so that we accelerated to reach our objectives. So we actually already exceeded 80% of a contracting rate, and we also exceeded the threshold for spending the funds actually. So we increased our performance in just the 2.5 years, and in a very short while we are going to conclude the IPA 2 period, and we will be quite successful. So in the first objective, we're still ongoing, it's on track, we have a good cooperation, and this needs to be continue. The second objective is related to result-oriented monitoring. The result-oriented monitoring needs to be integrated in the policies. So our colleagues has already shared the numbers and figures of the result-oriented monitoring report. Our numbers are quite good, our technicalities are quite good, but there are still room for improvement. Andre also mentioned we have some achievements, but those achievements needs to be integrated into policy making levels. That's quite important, and we need to highlight this fact, especially in the second round of IPA 2 and IPA 3. And what is our third objective? The common communication and coordination. That's the third objective area actually. And today during the coffee breaks we discussed this cooperation and coordination unit. We need to improve the coordination. That's a really good target actually, and we need to work harder to provide this. And in the motto of our project, we always say that each result is a new beginning, which means that we learn from every activity, every event, and every project. And Andre also highlighted that important point. We need to increase the number of this coordination events, not only on the level of Turkey, but also we need to invite Brussels to those events, and therefore we need to increase the number of this type of events. What we can do, maybe for example, we can organize an annual IPA conference where we share our achievements, or we can have micro meetings. We can turn it into a very traditional meeting, traditional event actually. So this organization was a really successful one, and that message would be the most important achievement for the future. What else can be done? We can identify some interim themes for interim meetings, and we can discuss the achievements on a sectoral basis. For example, we can have achievement the experience sharing meetings for transportation, for agriculture, for justice, etc. And most importantly, we need to improve the dialogue between Turkey and Brussels. So we have to design all those events. And so all in all, each result is a new beginning, and those achievements that we have today will be the input of the future events, actually. And in addition to the common communication, we also need to focus on education, training, and capacity building. We need to work harder. As NIPAC, we will do our best in the near future.
And what was the fourth topic? It was the holistic approach. Then again, during the panels, leading institutions stated that the budget has decreased. What should we do? Because we need to preserve the teams and implement projects, but this leads us to the solution. Holistic approach will help us. Surely, we wish that the funds had not been reduced, but now the situation is quite obvious, and we will proceed with the current conditions. In IPA 3, we need to focus on our projects and what kind of gains that we can get through IPA channels. We may obtain certain financial aid tools to support our common goal. And lastly, IPA 3. Surely there are certain expectations from everyone, but financing part is the most important area in regard to the expectations. For Turkey's financing, there is a significant cut. There are two essential points that EU has stated: Green Deal and digitalization. Those are soft diplomacy areas in which politics are not involved, and we need to maintain dialogue between Turkey and EU for these issues. Blending mechanisms is an important one as well, and there is a recommendation by EU, so I will leave the floor to Andre for his further comments. We need to discuss all those issues in detail in upcoming events. Thank you. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much, Bülent. And indeed, I mean, the future is as important as the past that we looked at today. But let me first start with one observation. We are still in the middle of IPA 2. And I think that we should certainly not forget this. So our colleagues in Brussels are usually obsessed by numbers which are commitment targets and payment targets, which are budgetary targets. But generally speaking, when we talk about this, we forget about implementation. And we know that today we are about to finalize the programs from 2014 and 15, which have a deadline for implementation end of this year, which means that out of the 3.2 billion euros, we are not yet at midlife of this program. We have a huge work ongoing, and for which we still need to deliver results, and this is where continuous reporting on what we are doing, continuing monitoring with whatever means available for achieving results remains extremely important, and not only for achieving results, but also because there is a consequence for this. If we do not achieve the results expected, there is a risk of non-eligibility. You mentioned the aspect of eligibility. So please, the focus of the administrations, of the beneficiaries, should be on implementation, and we will look at it in the sector monitoring committees on a continuous manner, and I hope that these conversations can also continue in the sector monitoring committees of IPA. That's significant, 3.2 billion euros ongoing. For the future, yes, I mean, all what we have heard here is lessons learned for the future on project design, on implementation methods, and on capacity building required for implementing this. Implementation methods, also including all actors, including civil society organizations, as it was mentioned. Hakan Bey, you mentioned that you were happy that civil society is a sector. It is a sector, but it is also present in all sectors. So we want to make sure that civil society can contribute in dialogue, in policy making, in project design, and in implementation in all sectors as well. And we will take the lessons learned from this monitoring for this purpose. For the new IPA 3 and the future assistance, we have various challenges. You mentioned amounts, money. Yes, indeed, it's an important aspect, and we know that the budget allocations are currently lower than what Turkey expected as a candidate country. Yes, but one thing you should not forget is that there will also be an acceleration of programming of funds in the first 3 years. We have already programmed IPA 2021. The Commission decision has been taken. IPA 22 is around the corner. It will be approved very early in the year this year, and we are also accelerating the programming of IPA 2023 with an objective to have it approved early 23. So basically, we will have 3 years of programming approved in a matter of 1 year, which will require immediate implementation afterwards. So yes, less lower budget per year, but the concentration in the first 3 years will be extremely challenging as well, and will compensate the fact that there will be lower budget. That is one aspect that is important. And there again, project design, structure in place for implementation, preconditions met for implementation will be key for demonstrating success. And as you know, IPA 3 is based on competition on performance, so we have to demonstrate this as well. Another aspect that is really important is the financing priorities that we have established jointly with Turkey, which are linked to the high-level dialogues, and you have mentioned some. We have environment and climate change, extremely important. We have agriculture, we have migration as well, and we see that the funding priorities are aligned to these sectors. We see that in 21 and to a certain extent also in 22 in the draft now, we are focusing a lot on climate change, environment and Green Deal. We are focusing a lot also on social inclusion and support to private sector to bring in Turkey into the value chains with the European Union. And we have also migration as an important component, and this supports the high-level dialogue which are established. Linked to this, there is the assistance for refugees, which is assistance for refugees and host communities. Let's not forget it. Both are targeted, and this is an important funding that is being put in place, 1 billion euros per year in the years 21, 22, 23, which will also require accelerated implementation, and where we also discuss challenges of a situation that is lasting. It is not a short-term situation as we had all believed and hoped some years ago. It's a lasting one, and we need to look at the consequences for this. And there definitely there has been some segmentation between assistance for refugees so far and the rest of assistance, but we see that there are more and more convergences or points of contacts, and are seeing that definitely the capacity that we have in this room yesterday and today would be extremely important to help implementation and fast implementation of the assistance for refugees and host communities as well. And we definitely would like to look at possible synergies, what you can bring to this process as well. And I know that it exists. I was discussing yesterday about a project on employment generation and support to the private sector, where I understood that in one of the intermediate banks from Turkey, Turkish Investment Bank, is going very, very well thanks to contribution of ex-colleagues from the CFCU who are working in that bank. So IPA has a huge capacity building component, and that is spreading across the public administration. So these are the challenges that I see in the immediate future, and we are definitely there to work with you together on having the right structures, the right policy dialogue, and the right approach on how to implement this.
Andre, çok teşekkür.
Andre, thank you. You have touched upon very important points.
One point,
please.
Involvement of the private sector as well, and other alternative methods of financing, but maybe you can comment on this as well. We want also to, and we will have discussions next week with you and with IFIs and the private sector, see how or alternative sources of financing also for private sector can help in this process, but maybe you want to comment on this.
Çok teşekkürler Andre.
Thank you, Andre. I may briefly state the situation. Yes, that blending mechanism gets benefit from IPA funds, and also we create a scale economy through different international funds. There are certain gaps. We are not quite clear about topics, but next week, as it has been stated, there will be a visit from European Commission, and we will be discussing all the details. Then, as public institutions, we will understand our roadmap for future involving private sector and other international funds. So this will be a very important meeting, an important week for us to identify all those issues. And yes, all challenges have been clearly stated by Andre, and those are important points for us to keep in our minds during our implementations. Yes, IPA 2 is still being implemented, but we need to start IPA 3 immediately also. What is the most important characteristic of IPA 3? Together with programming, we need to have a fast implementation period, because we have complained over that all the time. All leading institutions stated that yes, programming, project preparation takes long time, and there is a long time in between project preparation and implementation, and we need to overcome that challenge. And this is the one of the main features of new term. And together with the support of European Union delegation to Turkey, we will have a very nice period, we do believe. And leading institutions representatives have stated all the points, and we didn't want to duplicate those statements in this closing ceremony, and we wanted to take a different perspective. We do hope that that seminar was fruitful for you to understand today and future. And I would like to thank Andre for his contributions. There are a couple of other people that I want to thank for this organization. I want to have an interactive session for that. I invite you to applause all of them. First, let's have an applause for institutions who have been involved in IPA process. We need to applaud the ones who have projects as project beneficiaries, because together with their efforts, we have all those gains. So one applause for yourselves. And surely, having an organization is not an easy task. There is a huge effort behind that. I would like to thank Cemre and her team, Directorate for EU Affairs, Head of Monitoring and Evaluation Department. This was a teamwork, though it has been a very challenging period. We decided to have this organization 3 months ago, but we were just unaware of Omicron. And against all the odds, they have succeeded. So one thanks to the team organizing this meeting. And of course, it requires a collaboration. There's a financing part of this meeting. I would like to thank to the European Union delegation to Turkey, to Andre and his team for contributing and believing in this process. They have participated, they provided their feedbacks, inputs. So thank you, European Union delegation to Turkey. And during the organization, maybe you haven't noticed, but from social media, for 1.5 hours, there is an interpretation service. So we would like to thank our interpreters. Maybe I forgot some of you, so I'm quite sorry. But once again, I would like to thank every one of you who contributed, who organized the meeting. on behalf of my institution, we are glad to have you. We will conclude, but Öykü says there will be a surprise. There will be a surprise, so everyone is wondering. I will give you a clue. Yesterday, Raji said something very nice. He said, climate and environmental action will celebrate its 11th anniversary, and he said it was quite special for them. Indeed, for the ones who are new to IPA process, it may not mean something huge, but for the ones who started their profession in 2002 and blended in the process, NIPACs, CFCs, audit authorities, they have witnessed the maturing process of all those institutions, and it is indeed quite valuable. Other than main actors, this practice disseminated across ministries, and it was a transformation point for all public institutions to have capacity building, to have programming capacity. And it was the first time that we practiced something like that. That's why 11th anniversary is quite meaningful for us, and we have this birthday organization for them. It is easy to say 11th year, but indeed it was a challenging process. So we will have our cake. I would like to just congratulate the team. You may just participate with your applauses. Let's have you here and participate in that. This 1.5 day will be concluded with a sweet taste. And as you do know, 20th of January is their anniversary. First of all, I would like to invite Ismail Raji Bayer, who is the head of EU Investments Department from Ministry of Environment, Urbanization and Climate Change. IPA directors, transportation, Ministry of Justice, Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry, Rural Development Support Institution, Ministry of Labor and Social Security. Could you please all join us here? It says IPA environment is 11 years old. Cemre Hanım, may I have you here? Sure, everyone is invited, but I'm waiting for my team especially. And I would like to thank you for this kind surprise of yours. I believe this is a first to celebrate birthday for a Director General. By the way, we have 3 other departments accredited in 2012. We may also celebrate theirs when it is the time. So as the representative of the accreditation institution, we need to have the cake with you. 1 billion euros have been benefited in this 11 years. And in the 7 years of this process, I am the head of department. In 2011, we have acquired accreditation, but I would like to thank all administrators, all colleagues who assisted us in this process. Thank you. So let's have a slice of the cake. Maybe we can increase the volume of music. IPA environment is celebrating its 11th year, 11 years of efforts. So thank you so much for being with us. And as I've stated, we will have a sweet end to this ceremony. Let's have a family photo together. Can you just come closer? Ministry of Environment, Urbanization and Climate Change, EU Investments Department celebrating their 11th year. So we wanted to participate to this celebration with a cake. We have our team here, esteemed head of departments, representatives. Once again, thank you everyone. Mr. Director General, let's have more reason to celebrate. The first IPA unit established is CFCU, and cfcu.gov.tr was their domain name, and then we had the domain of ipa.gov.tr as the second one. And 4 other departments were accredited. And of course, having the domain does not mean that we are the only representatives of IPA. You have contributed hugely. We would like to just transfer ipa.gov.tr to you, to your hands. Our new domain will be ipa.gov.tr CSP. So, congratulations for that. A very fruitful 1.5 days. Thank you very much for your contributions. Let's meet at -1 floor where we had our lunch yesterday. We will have the closing there. IPA Experience Sharing Seminar is finalized here. We would like to thank our online contributors. Thank you.